Dr. Jolly's Salvation Circus. The Swan Yard era was over, and the ending of another was just about to follow. It was around this time the tight box was eventually sorted out. The company was about to be dissolved after the receiver had finished sorting out the mess. I don't remember any details of what was owed or to whom, but there were creditors and the final company business had to be tidied up. To be honest, I couldn't really give a fuck. I was half resigned to the fact that there'd be nothing left in the pot for us after lawyers, accountants, taxmen and VAT had taken their slice. I got a letter inviting me to a lawyer's office for a summing up and a signing off. I arrived at the place and was ushered into a huge boardroom with a posh coffee and waited. For all I knew, the other directors might be turning up to add their signatures, but it was unlikely. Mark had moved to America, Ped had moved to Hull, Paul was somewhere, and I hadn't seen Holly for years. Nobody else showed. It was left to me and a lawyer to finally bury the Frankie corpse. He explained that he'd managed to secure so many pence in the pound for each of the band members, and I'd be getting a cheque for about $9,000, I think. I apologised for my memory being so vague with regard to the figures. We had a brief chat about music while I signed various papers before shaking hands and leaving with a cheque. The dispute over finalising the band's finances had lasted longer than the band's career, but it was now official. The ride was over. With Swanyard now just a bad memory, Grant and I decided on a change of direction. We discussed an idea of a band of heroes driving across the dusty plains in a couple of covered wagons trying to sell their rock and roll elixir to the pioneers. A mix of circus meets medicine show with an exotic preacher leading the troupe. Dr. Jolly was the fictitious founder of the Salvation Circus. We will entertain you and our music will save your soul. Dr. Jolly's Salvation Circus was born. They'll be called Dr. Jolly's from now on because the full title is too long. Dr. Jolly's was a four-piece. Grant and I with Tony Kiley on drums and his fellow blow monkey Mick Anker on bass. We recorded some of the demos with the aid of Adrian Bushby. We'd done a few sessions with Aid since meeting him at Trident, and although he was very young, he was a great engineer and a lovely lad. In the intervening years, Adrian's become my adopted son, or a much younger little brother. He's totally fulfilled the potential he'd shown when he was recording with us at Trident, and has recently won 2 Grammys for his work with the Foo Fighters and Muse. He mixed my last album, but he's yet to get a Grammy for that. We do a couple of gigs and enlist Mick Gaiman to play second guitar and harmonica. The band sounded fantastic apart from Mick's obligatory blunders in every other song. Grant and I would work with Mick for about 2 years, and it would happen all the time. If he wasn't playing a part that made him look like the great bass player he was, he would switch off and just hit bad bum notes. If a musician's playing a bum note because the part's difficult or the dexterity required is absent, then that's forgivable, but Mick was murder. Ask him to play a funky groove with a few flicks to showcase his slapping and popping expertise, and he'd lay it down faultlessly all day long. Ask him to play 4 different notes, straight 8s, over 16 bars, and you could put your house on a clanger before the bridge. It was down to lack of concentration. If he was playing something that wasn't taxing him, then you could see him switch off about 12 bars in. Wonder what the traffic will be like on the way home. I think I'll make some nice baked potatoes when I get home. Wonder if there's anything good on the telly tonight. Clang. He was a great musician though and a good lad despite testing our patience with his banger fingers. It was a good job he made his living playing the bass and not driving a fucking train, as bum notes would never kill anybody. Tony Kiley was spinning too many plates and couldn't commit to anything long term, so we had to get a replacement drummer. Mitt suggested a guy he knew called Paul Pridmore. Paul was a mellow guy and a great drummer and he fitted in perfectly. Paul lived in a house in Leytonstone that had a small cellar. You couldn't stand up in there, but we could rehearse for free as long as we didn't mind sitting down. The sound of the music that Grant and I were writing was definitely being influenced by the fact that we had musicians to play with on a regular basis. Samplers and keyboards had been the basis of a lot of the previous songs we'd written, but taking the writing into a band situation meant that ideas developed a lot faster. Changing a bass note and adding 2 bars could be done in a second, and to transpose a note and insert 2 bars in the computer would take 2 minutes. Instead of starting with a load of grooves playing the song from the boxes, the songs would emerge from sitting in Grant's living room and strumming the acoustic. You could say the 90s were the decades when people fell in love with guitars again. I was one of those people. The songwriting went anti-technology, and if we couldn't perform the song with me strumming and Grant singing, then it wasn't really a song. It would have to stand up as a good tune in a raw state. Millions of musicians write songs like this, but I was coming to writing in this way for the first time, really. Playing a song on an acoustic gives the player complete control over the dynamic. You can go from tickling it to twatting it in 4 bars, and your dynamic range is wider, if you know what I mean. I was contributing more in the vocal department and adding harmonies to Grant's lead. I'd done backing vocals in the studio and done them live, but I'd improved a lot during this period of strumming in the house. Grant was hugely encouraging in my singing, and without his encouragement, I don't think I would have ever taken the first steps to becoming a lead vocalist. I knew that our voices sounded good together from the recordings we'd done, but it's easy to make something average sound good in the studio. Doing it live with 2 voices meant your performance was exposed for scrutiny, and we enjoyed loads of afternoons working on the lyrics and harmonies. Although I'd been writing songs for a few years, it was only when we took this approach to writing that I really started to understand how songs were written. I was becoming more involved in the lyric writing and was again encouraged by Grant. If someone were to present a lyric for the first time to a songwriting partner and get ridiculed or knocked back, the result could be that the pen would be put down and never picked up again. I respected his opinion, and if he thought it was good, then it was probably good. This encouragement made me feel more confident about what I was writing, and I got more into it. Dr. Jolly's got a little break when we were invited to appear on the newly launched live TV. On Saturday nights they broadcast from halfway up Canary Wharf, and there was an invited audience. At worst, we thought it would be a good way of capturing the band live, and then we could use the footage as a promotional tool. We'd have to find a way to remove the live TV banner from the bottom of the screen that declared, "We're here, we're queer, we've got free beer." We were going to do 6 songs, so at the very least we should be able to have 1 or 2 great performances. We get some great visuals, but the song sounded dreadful. Thank fuck there was probably only about 500 people watching. When we watched it back a few days later, we were gutted. The sound was absolutely shocking, and there was no excuses for it. They had loads of brand new equipment at their disposal, but unfortunately for us, it was in the hands of knobheads. The sound I picked up on my own video camera was better quality than what was broadcast. It was pretty deflating, to say the least. They killed our fucking songs. Helen Keller would have mixed it better. Getting gigs was a hassle, sending out demos that would no doubt find their way to Demo Mountain in some promoter's office. When you did get a gig, it was a hassle to get people to come and see you play. I was player manager of a Sunday League team at the time, and ringing people to coax them to attend your gig was like trying to round up players on a Saturday night. It was hard work, but we'd do it. I don't want to tarnish all promoters with the same brush. There are many people who I've worked with in recent years that have been fair, enthusiastic and brilliant at promoting their events. These days, most of the people who are promoting music at the lower level think their duties end after writing the band's name in chalk on the board outside the venue. Doing gigs to try and raise some money to do some demos was a non-starter. We had no money for studio time, so Adrian helped us out by getting downtime at a couple of studios and sneaking us in. We also worked with Martin Russell at his new studio. Martin was the boss engineer at Swanyard Studios, and we'd done recording with him whilst we were there. Martin's been involved, one way or another, in almost everything I've recorded since. The songs we recorded were sounding great, but nobody was biting. We did see a few labels, but they all gave it's not what we're looking for at the minute. To be honest though, most of the A&R guys we came across were tools. I wouldn't have trusted half of them to sit the right way on a toilet, let alone sign our career over to them. We did have one meeting that was truly epic though. My snooker partner and fellow Sunday footballer Steve Broughton knew Mickey most and set us up with a meeting down at Mickey's Rack Studio in St John's Wood. To most people in the UK, Mickey Most was the harsh TV judge on New Faces. He was a legendary producer in the 60s and 70s and had formed Rack Records. If you want to know more, then look at his wiki, but I think it's fair to say he was an absolute legend. We turn up at Rack and are shown into a big studio. Mickey joins us a few minutes later and he's cool as fuck. Nice shirt, shades on and sporting a healthy tan. You could tell this guy had style as well as a few quid. After introductions and a brief chat, he asks us to play him something. He listens to the first one and he likes it loud. "Yeah, that's good, play me another." We oblige and he likes that too. We play England in the Rain and he declares a halt about a minute in. Don't like that one, play me another, and so on. After 5 or 6 songs, he tells us that he reckons we have the 3 singles we would need, and he didn't really know what he could do for us. There then follows a 30-minute conversation. We are mostly listening because Mickey's talking. That is littered with brilliance. On superstars, we've had them all in here, from Michael Jackson down. On producing records, I stopped making records when they started giving them away. On the time spent making modern records, in all my years I've never had anyone stop me in the street and say, "Hey Mickey, I didn't really like that bass drum sound you got on House of the Rising Sun." On marketing, you got to get the housewives to dip into the housekeeping money and buy your record. On rap music, if you're having a dinner party round your house, you want music that will sound good on your Bang & Olufsen, not someone shouting "fuck the police." It was like receiving a condensed lecture on the merits of the music industry. Absolute genius. Recognising that I was a Scouser, he asked me if I was red or blue. When I answered red, it triggered another 10 minutes talking about Liverpool. He told us a fantastic story about a visit to Anfield that resulted in him being named as a substitute. Apparently the club had signed him and registered him as a player, and he watched the game from the dugout at Anfield. He was an absolute diamond. Really charming, friendly and open, and absolutely spot on in almost everything he said. He waved us off with a "good luck lads, if you think there's anything I can do for you then give me a call." It was like we'd just been for a meeting with the Don. The two of us were gobsmacked. We'd both been in plenty of meetings over the years, but nothing had been anything like we'd just experienced. We had to have a pint. We sat outside a pub in the sunshine and for the first minute just replayed the meeting in our heads. Thank you for the memory, Mickey. However positive we felt after that meeting, it would not bring us anywhere near our goal of getting something released. Invitations to run away with Dr. Jolly's Salvation Circus had been greeted with apathy. Maybe it was time to leave the circus.